We're going to call the meeting to order tonight at 7:02 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we're going to start off our evenings tonight. We need a motion and approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Okay, motion passes. Agenda is approved. We also need to address the minutes from our April 11th meeting.
To approve the minutes from April 11th, 2022.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
And the minutes from April 11th have been approved. We're going to move on to school committee chairperson comments. I'd like to take a second to thank the towns of Mendon-Upton for their financial support and the approval of the budget at the town meetings that occurred last week. I'd also like to take a second to acknowledge the fact that last week was Teacher Appreciation Week, and to I hope the school committee won't mind that I will speak in everyone's behalf to say we are very appreciative for all the time and effort and work and love that our teachers put into our students. Also would like to acknowledge last Friday was School Lunch Hero Day, and that this upcoming Wednesday is School Nurses Day. So thank you to all of these wonderful folks who provide invaluable services to our students. Like to move on next to community comments. And I'll look to the folks assembled today to see if we have any comments from the community. I'm not seeing any. Sam, do we have anybody online?
Ma'am, I see no inquiries as of this time.
Okay, fantastic. So we will move on to student comments. And we have here tonight with us Clough Elementary School student presentation with Mr. Hayes, who is the physical education teacher, and we're presenting a 4th grade project tonight. Welcome.
Thank you. I just want to thank you first of all for inviting us and allowing Mr. Hayes to share the amazing project that these youngsters have been doing. So hopefully you'll enjoy it as much as they have. So
Excellent.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for having us here tonight to share with you what the 4th graders at the Clough Elementary School have been working on over the past several months in physical education. My name is Dan Hayes, and I'm the phys ed teacher at the Clough Elementary School. I am in my 22nd year of teaching for the school district, and this is the first year that I've had my 4th graders create and teach their own dodgeball game. This group of students did an amazing job with this project from start to finish. Would you guys like to introduce yourself? Casey, we'll start. Just tell everybody your name and the name of your dodgeball game.
Hi, my name is Casey, and my dodgeball game was Double Trouble.
Nice.
My name is Liesland, and my game is called Crocs.
My name is Andrew, and my game is called Laser Taser.
My name is Kai, and I work with Andrew and taught kids how to play Laser Taser.
My name is Reed, and my dodgeball name is Running Dr. Dodgeball.
My name is Ophelia, and I helped create Fort Fire.
My name is Parker, and I helped create Fort Fire.
My name is Zane, and I created Fort Fire.
My name is Maya, and I helped create
My name is Dylan, and I helped create Survival.
My name is Grace, and I created Survival.
So this group of students did an amazing job with the project from start to finish. They started off by writing out the rules to their dodgeball game and turning them into me. From there, they went on to teach their dodgeball game to their classmates. And then after that, they taught their dodgeball game to either a 2nd or a 3rd grade class. The students absolutely loved their dodgeball games. In fact, they enjoyed their dodgeball games so much that they now request to play their dodgeball games over mine. Which, no offense taken, that's how awesome your dodgeball games are. In fact, they're gonna be part of my curriculum now moving forward, which means I'm gonna be playing your dodgeball games with my students for a long time to come. So thank you guys for creating such awesome dodgeball games. So the project was optional. Any fourth grader who wanted to create and teach a dodgeball game could do so. I just asked that they follow those 3 steps of writing out the rules and turning them into me. And from there, if they wanted to, if they were comfortable enough, they could move on to teach the dodgeball game to their classmates. And then after that, if they felt comfortable enough, they would teach their dodgeball game to either a 2nd or a 3rd grade class. This group of students, they chose to complete all 3 steps. They could also work on the project either by themselves or in a small group of 2 or 3. Parker, Ophelia, and Zane were a group. They worked as a group of 3. Andrew, Kai, and Maya worked as a group of 3. Bryce and Dylan worked as a pair. Macy and Casey each did their project on their own, as did Reed, worked on his own. So there was different ways to go about working on this project. The students who did not create a dodgeball game, they still benefited from this project. They got to participate and play some really fun, brand new dodgeball games. And we focused on our KCR program during this project. Our KCR program is our character education program, which stands for kind, caring, and respectful behavior. We focused on being a kind, caring, and respectful audience. And I'm happy to say that the entire 4th grade, along with the 2nd and 3rd grade classes that got to play their games, were amazing audiences. They were very respectful, and it made teaching their dodgeball games so much easier for these guys. 2 things stood out to me more than anything else during this project, and I don't want to minimize or take away from the quality of the dodgeball games that you guys came up with, and certainly the outstanding job of teaching it that you did. But the 2 things that stood out to me more so than anything else was the motivation and the inspiration that this group of students provided to all the other 4th graders by being the first ones to create and teach their dodgeball games, by creating quality dodgeball games that everybody enjoyed playing, and by being so confident in your ability to teach in front of your classmates. That truly inspired and motivated other 4th grade students to move forward and create and teach dodgeball games of their own. So I want to thank you guys for being such a motivation and inspiration to your classmates. You guys really got the ball rolling with this project and made it the success that it was by being so much of a motivation and inspiration to your classmates. So thank you guys. And then the other thing that stood out to me during this project, and Mrs. Gallagher saw this when she came in to watch them teach the 2nd and 3rd grade students, and we talked about it after you guys taught the lesson. It's how much the 2nd and 3rd grade students look up to the 4th graders. These students are truly role models to the younger students in our school. I can't tell you how excited those 2nd and 3rd graders were to find out that you guys were going to be teaching them the dodgeball game. And you could see it in their faces while they were listening to you guys give the directions of your dodgeball games. They were very good audiences, not just because of the KCR piece, but because they were so excited to have you guys in there teaching. So I want to thank you guys for being positive role models to the young students in our school. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to ask the students some questions about the project so they can answer the questions and give a student's perspective on the project. Any questions that you may have, you can also ask them. And then after that, we have a slideshow to show some really nice pictures of our students in action throughout the course of the project. And then we'll wrap things up with any questions that you might have for me. So I'll ask you guys some questions. Just raise your hand, okay, and I'll call on you. So make sure you speak as loudly as you can. Okay, what was your favorite part of the project? Ophelia?
I like to create. My favorite part of the project was actually creating the game.
So actually creating the game with your group? Excellent. Reed?
My favorite part was watching kids play my game and see how happy they were.
Excellent. Nice answer. Kai?
I like to play in the game.
You're like, all right, so not only did they get to teach the game, but they also got to play the game with their classmates and the second and third graders who love that as well. Andrew?
My favorite part was when we were teaching it to them, to seeing them really happy with the new game to play and not just other games.
That's why they prefer your dodgeball games to mine. Dylan?
I like teaching the second and third graders to spark their minds, I'll call it. Because he mentioned after we did it that eventually they might be able to create their games, even not even getting into the fourth grade. So they went. Yeah.
Absolutely. Macy?
I just really love working with kids, and I thought it was a really fun night.
Absolutely. Daisy?
My favorite part was teaching it to the kids and explaining it to the kids,
Yep.
because the kids were like they were like all like together and they all like getting out.
Absolutely. Zane?
My favorite part was creating it and teaching and playing it with the second and third graders because it was just really fun.
Excellent. Absolutely.
And they really loved it.
Very good. And the next question I have for you guys, what was the most difficult part of this project? Zane, we'll go right back to you to start.
Fixing the problems, like sometimes little problems.
Just within the game itself? Okay, I thought, Zane, it was a really good game. Dylan?
Creating it, but also I was pretty nervous that the kids weren't gonna like it, especially my classmates. Then they might talk to me back and be like, "Why'd you create this? Why didn't you do this or that?"
But that wasn't the case at all.
No.
They really enjoyed the game, both your classmates and the third grade class that you taught it to. Macy?
Probably the hardest thing was trying to figure out a game. I would go to my parents and explain it to them, and they would like help me back. And I really thought that was kind of like the hardest part to
So
do
coming
it.
up with the ideas of.
But then it got funner and funner as we.
Excellent. Andrew?
Probably creating the game and finding all the rules and what would it look like and how big was the area.
Excellent. Casey?
The difficult part was getting on stage.
Getting on stage, absolutely. Celia?
I think the hardest part of it was trying to create trying to figure out what parts we could use and what parts that we couldn't.
Yes. And you guys they had terrific ideas along the whole, throughout the entire project. They had wonderful ideas. They got to use all different equipment for the dodgeball games. They used everything from the fold-up mats that we have in the gym to the pool noodles, the bowling pins. They really, really put together some nice games with some great ideas. And then raise your hand if you were nervous before you taught the game to your classmates. Okay. Raise your hand if you were nervous before you taught it to the second or third grade class. Okay. How many of you felt really good and proud after you taught the lesson? And then how many of you would be interested in teaching another game, another non-dodgeball game before the end of the school year? All right, I think I can make that happen over the next 6 weeks. So, all right, great job, my friends. Could we show the slideshow now? Yes. See. So we tried to get as many pictures as we could of the students in action, teaching their lesson. You can see the classes that are in front of, we got there, Zane and a few. You can see the fold-up mats that we used. Is that you, Reed, up there with the orange shirt? Yeah, excellent. And again, the students were just amazing audiences, the second and third graders and the fourth graders as well. They're so respectful. It made it so much easier for these guys to teach their lessons. And is there a video clip?
Is it like just?
Yep. Good. So, any questions for me? This was all about you guys, so, yeah. So again, thank you so much for having us here tonight. We've been looking forward to this for quite some time. Thank you to Mrs. Gallagher. Thank you to the students for doing such a great job. Thank you to your parents for getting you guys here and being here with us as well tonight. It was a real treat. Thank
Before
you.
you go, Mr. Hayes, I actually do have a
Yes,
question.
sure.
It sounds like you've reimagined dodgeball. What's next? Are you gonna have like
Yeah,
different kinds of dodgeball games,
so-
or are we looking at something different?
I decided to go with dodgeball for this year, being the first year that I've done it. Dodgeball, without a doubt, is one of the more, it's the most popular game, creative game that we do in physical education at Clef. I knew that they'd be able to come up with some great ideas for dodgeball games, but moving forward, yeah, I can see this is gonna evolve into not just a dodgeball, create a dodgeball game, but create any type of game. And for next year, it's not just gonna be a fourth grade project, it's gonna be a school-wide project. So that was one of the first questions that the second and third graders had for me once you guys headed out and they talked about how awesome your games were. They wanted to know if they could create and teach a dodgeball game to their classmates and possibly a kindergarten or first grade class. And I said, whoa, wait a second. The kindergarten and first graders might be a little bit of a challenge to teach to, but yeah, it's gonna turn into a school-wide project for next year.
That's great. Keep creating curriculum, I love it.
Good job.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
This doesn't give me an interactive presentation. I know. Adults against students on the school committee, I like it. Hey. We will move forward at this point with our student representatives.
All right, so I know we mentioned that we would go to Memorial for a school tour, and we did that 4 weeks ago, right before April break. Like I said, we went to Memorial Elementary and we visited students who we also represent during their lunches. This was just a great opportunity to talk with students in more of an informal, casual way, in their lunch, to get the most honest feedback we could. We got a lot of comments regarding the sciences and the maths when we asked them what their favorite subjects were, which was a surprise to me because I remember when I was in elementary school, I did not like science or math. So that definitely surprised me. But essentially what we did during our lunches, and actually for, I think it was a third grade lunch, we actually ate with them, which was cool. We got their lunch and everything. But I know I tried to, so when I first approached a group of students, I would introduce myself and I would ask them if they knew what the school community was. And if they said that they didn't, then I would try my best to explain what it was and why I'm actually there. And my role on the school committee, which is to represent them. And then I would get more into the, well, what's your favorite subject? What's your favorite part of the classroom? And like I said, a lot of them said science and math. But referring to the favorite part of the classroom, a lot of students said that the whiteboard was their favorite part, which was interesting. And they said that they liked that you can write on it, erase it, and how the teacher does a lot of instruction on the whiteboard. But going back to the favorite subjects, ST Math was mentioned almost every time a student said that math was their favorite subject, because I would ask, what do you like doing in math that makes it your favorite subject? And they would always mention ST Math. And I don't think we received one negative comment about that program.
It was all about ST Math.
They just loved ST Math. So it was just a really great opportunity. We're looking to go to Clough and Misco before the 26th when seniors leave, which is when I will unfortunately leave.
Sure, all right.
He said he's welcome to stay.
Yeah. That's all I had for the Memorial School Tour. So moving on to Prom. Prom was last Friday night. There was tons of good food, such as like mashed potato appetizers, mac and cheese, and burgers. Attendees could take a round trip on the lift. So we didn't actually stop at the summit, but we just continued on the lift up and down, which was really cool because I've never really gone down a lift. I usually ski down, but that was definitely a different experience. But the view was incredible. You could definitely see some certain hills in the distance and stuff. But after that, the last part of the night featured a DJ and lots of dancing. But all in all, I know I had a great time. Generally speaking, the feedback has been very positive from people I've talked to and such. Unfortunately, I didn't go to the after prom, but I've heard great things about it. I know there was a comedian there who was cracking a few jokes. So I just like to recognize the prom committee, 2022 class office, and especially Miss B, the advisor, for all their incredible work in planning prom. It was a great night. Speaking of nights, this Thursday from 5:15 to 7:30 at Nipmoc is International Night, which is very exciting. If the committee doesn't know, International Night is an opportunity for students and families in MRC and I'm taking this from the website, to embrace the diversity in our community while enjoying great food, music, and traditions from around the world. When I was in middle school, I do remember going to International Night almost every year. It was definitely one of the highlights of the year. It was great fun, great food. It's a good time. And then moving on, AP exams at Nipmoc started last week, or AP exams across the country, I guess, started last week and are continuing through this week. I know many students at Nipmoc and many students across the country are either very eager to study hard and finish the exam, or like me, who luckily had I have all my tests last week, so I'm done with them, are enjoying the downtime, which is fantastic. I'd just like to wish a good luck to all those taking exams this week, and get a good night's sleep before we eat breakfast. Yeah.
Good advice.
Adding on to the memorial trip that we went on to, I think one of the highlights that when I was talking to students, a lot of people talked about how they loved the group work that they did, and a lot of positive feedback on the teachers. Oh, I love this teacher. I love this teacher. I haven't been to Memorial, like I didn't go like as a school student there, but they were like, oh, I love this teacher. I was like, they were like, oh, have you been there?
Yeah, a lot of them asked to start like what Nipmoc was like or what middle school was like, and if it was scary or not. Yeah, it was interesting.
It was great about like, what? How do you change classes?
Yeah, exactly.
But it was super fun just talking to them and hanging out with them and getting to know them. And then another thing I want to talk about is teacher appreciation. We're just adding on to what you said. I think just talking about how we're so grateful for having all those teachers all around the district and for all their hard work. We just want to thank them. And I think Nipmoc students, I don't know if it was in other schools, but Nipmoc students did do thank you notes for them, teachers in the school. So they just write personalized note for our teacher and something that they did for us. And they all got the notes, which is awesome. Another thing that's happening is FAST, May 19th. We're finally bringing it back after 2 years. So it stands for Faculty and Students Together. That's basically one of the most fun and like the highlight of the year. Everyone like dresses up in their class color and has like the best time, and everyone goes crazy with it too. We have a pep rally at the end of the day, and there is activities, class competitions, and everyone just goes against each other. It's super fun, and we're excited for that.
I remember FAST from 1992. I'm sure somewhere those videos are still floating around. The lip syncing contest was a very popular one.
Okay, so those are videos we have to look
Yeah.
Awesome.
Next meeting.
Right.
Excellent. Thank you guys, appreciate it. All right, and moving forward, we'll hear from Dr. Cohen.
All right, thank you. We have, to kick us off, we have Mr. Timothy Craven, who's gonna give us some highlights on an audit that he does one every year, and he's gonna fill us in on some things we need to know.
Is that right if I
You can
turn the
sit,
chair around?
yeah, you can sit here, you can sit there, turn around, whatever works for you.
I was kind of excited when I came in. I thought I was gonna have a whole new generation of people who excite with government accounting and all that.
You have any dodgeball stories?
Anyway, my name is Tim Craven. I'm a CPA. My office is in Norwood, Mass. I conduct the single audit of the Mendon-Upton Regional School District for the year of June 30, 2021. The audit report is 40 pages long. I'm not going to go through everything with you. The report is really 5 sections. The first section are 3 reports that are mine. Second section would be the management discussion and analysis, which is provided by Jay. The third section would be the financial statements, which are 12 pages. The fourth section would be the footnotes. The fifth section is the report of federal financial expenditures. The opinion, all of the opinions, with respect to internal control, compliance with that laws and regulations, and the financial statements themselves had an unqualified opinion, which is the right, best opinion you can have. Sometimes it's hard for a person to understand that a qualified opinion is bad and an unqualified is good. So that's that. We can go through that. It's really boilerplate from getting here, unless there was a problem, which I would address. The first point that I would point out is Jay's MD&A. That's about the leases for the elementary schools. They've expired, and that needs to be. I also have a footnote. I have a footnote that talks about the leases having expired.
I apologize. The leases for what?
The Cluffin
Muffin Memorial.
Prom Memorial
Got it.
Schools.
Got it, okay.
We did a lot of renovations on them, and we're now fully depreciated because you did it for the lease term, which was 20 years ago back when it started. Maybe, I think it was 19, actually. But, so that's not a financial issue anymore, but it is something that should be addressed. Next is the, in the reports, I did the MD&A. The next part is the financial statements, and they are really broken up into 4 different parts. The district-wide statements, which I will explain, the government activity statements, which I will explain, the enterprise fund statements, which is the cafeteria, which I'll have a little comment on that, and then the private purpose trust funds, which are the scholarship funds and the student activity fees, which are an agency fund. The district-wide statements break down all the activities of district into two subsets, governmental activities and business type activities. The governmental activities are everything except for the cafeteria, which is a business type activity. Under Mass law, the cafeteria is supposed to be, and therefore falls more in line with what you would do in a typical business. It uses accrual accounting. The only piece that really isn't there is depreciation on whatever assets, because they're not allocated. Total net assets and deficiencies, it shows a big deficit. It's not anything to worry about. It's really just the biggest pieces of it are the unfunded post-employment benefits, which, once again, that's a number that actuaries compute. You have to have it done every 2 years. The numbers change. It's a big number. And as you can see from page 9, which I know that some you printed them back to back. On page 9, you can see that the OPEB obligation is $57 million.
Can I ask a quick question
Sure.
on that? Are we doing anything?
You're not doing anything to fund it, no.
No, but we're managing the OPEB obligation on a year-to-year basis in the primary way that the rest of the schools are doing it? And in a best practice, or are we?
It's a calculation
That's
that,
an actuarial calculation.
it's an actuarial
We
calculation.
get that.
That you don't really fund. It would be the same as pension obligations, which are not funded by most municipalities. Some have small set-asides, but it's not anything. It's enough, from my perspective, it's a relatively meaningless number because no one makes financial decision based on what their OPEB is.
Can we manage our OPEB on a year-to-year basis as part of our operational budget?
You fund the current year's cost.
Yep.
Cash flow wise.
But you're saying that's
a standard practice.
Standard practice.
Yeah.
That's all I'm clear on is following standard practices.
Standard practice,
We're
that's
not,
correct.
if somebody looks at this and says, oh my God, $57 million.
Well,
That's-
yeah,
I call it, it's kind of one of those numbers that,
it's there, it's an egghead number,
yeah.
to be honest with you. It's not, it doesn't affect running the day-to-day operations of the district or a municipality or any other.
But it doesn't affect you
No,
because we're
no,
funding it on a year-to-year basis.
that's correct.
Sometimes people get a little worked.
That's correct, they do, but
It's nowhere in
then,
the
once
bank
again,
of the other municipalities.
yeah, they don't understand what it means is the case, you'd have to explain it. There is a reconciliation of the district-wide statements to the government activities statements, and that's on page 14 and 60, 14 and 12. So, once again, the big deficit is really not an issue because it's all related to the post-employment benefits that gets funded on a year-to-year basis. In theory, if the district were to dissolve and you have these post-employment benefits, they would be picked up by the towns on their financial statements. Going to page 10, that page 10 breaks out the P&L, or profit and loss statements for the government activities, which include all activities except for the cafeteria, which is on here as the business activities, food services. I have something to say about the food services, we'll talk about that later. On page 11, it shows the governmental funds, which, like I say, are everything else that the school district does, except for the cafeteria. You'll note that it has a total fund balance of $2.8 million, which is, I think, a pretty strong balance sheet for the size of the organization. I would also call your attention to the accounts payable number, and that is so large because the state gave you an extra Chapter 70 contribution in 2021 that they didn't want to take back, so they left it as a liability. I guess they had too much money, too much cash in this case. If you look at page 12, that gets back to one of the reconciliations I was talking about. That shows the OPEB obligation, etc. 13 is the governmental activity. 14 is the same. 15 is the budget versus actual. Page 16 is the cafeteria. It had its cash at the end of the year, which isn't always the case. Whereas this last year, it didn't have much cash at all. I would go to page 17, and I would call your attention to the non-operating revenue section. It shows federal aid of $797. That's for low price and free meals, and the federal government gave free lunches to everybody. I guess so there was a free lunch after all. They say that's a big number. You don't see that. You won't see that. Won't see that again. Page 19 is the fiduciary net assets, private purpose trust funds, and the Clifford Hall trust funds.
Yeah.
That are scholarship trust funds. They're considered private purpose because they go for scholarships to individuals versus someone giving you money to fund your operations, which would be a public purpose trust fund. And then the agency funds are the student activity accounts, which the district acts as an agent. They don't own the funds. They don't control how the money is spent. They may control the funds because you can't give checkbooks. No offense. You can't give big checkbooks to the young people before they know how to act. No offense. The footnotes are the footnotes. There's a lot of stuff in there that is directly taken from the from the actuarial report.
Yep.
And then the single audit report with the schedule of federal expenditures. I don't know if you want to go into any more detail. I mean, I can put you to sleep if you want. It was good that the kids aren't here because they were going to sleep already. I'll be happy to take any questions. Hearing none, am I dismissed as to what?
A quick
Sure.
on the long-term debt that exists out there.
Yeah.
That's all in relation still to Clough and Memorial, correct?
I think it's all in relation to
Clough
one.
Memorial and the Misco Green repair project we did about 10 years ago.
Yeah, and if I'm right, that all comes off the books when?
Fiscal year 24.
24.
Two more years.
There wasn't much left on that.
What?
2 more years.
2 more years. Got it.
And actually, you've gotten some funding, prior state funding from this SBAB that you put into a reserve, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
That actually is getting spent now on the Nipmoc boilers.
Boilers. Every year. Okay.
Hot water.
So then after that, our general long-term debt after 2024 at this point is zero. Okay.
I'm assuming you probably would. But you don't need to be repaired and replaced.
Oh, no, totally. There's one or two probably large items on that list that I realize we should discuss. Great. Thank you.
I appreciate it.
All right,
Thank you.
appreciate the opportunity to address you. What color? Well, that's me.
Jay's gonna actually
Always interested in
talk
what
about
Jay
some
has to
work
say.
related to facilities and maintenance improvements we've been working on.
Good evening, everyone. I can also put you to sleep with lots of details. It's a technique that we have. You were given a sheet of work, and this is mostly work that we did over April vacation, which is a fairly extensive list that were all the things that we were able to try to accomplish while there was nobody else in the buildings or less people in the buildings. So let's go by school. We'll start with Clough. The PFAS 6, we believe, well, everything was installed. We've done a test on it. DEP has the result, and we think that we're going to get the okie dokie from DEP to actually start turning the whole system online. We're hoping this week. The exact same system is being installed at MISCO, but they still haven't approved it yet. I'm not sure why, because they were both submitted at the same time, but that one is still there. That water pump link that we had back in February, we're about 50% on that. Some of the equipment's been put in, but some of the stuff is stuck in, I think I referred to it as the supply chain abyss. It's just out there somewhere, hopefully to show up at some point. So we're waiting for that. We had fire alarm inspections. You'll see it at each of the schools. That's when they come in and make sure all the alarm systems work. The other part of the Clough water treatment system is a UV light that purifies the water. They installed a new system at the beginning of this year, and we're finding it's very complex. So it sets off alarms on a regular basis. They are replacing that light over April break. But we're trying to figure out a better way, because apparently, and I don't understand all the details, but it pulls it out and then something's supposed to clean off the UV light thing, and it's not cleaning it, so it's giving you an alarm when there isn't really a problem, but because the UV light gets clouded, it creates a problem. So we're still working on that, but again, it was a system that's been in place for the whole time the school's been open. And it just purifies the water. Memorial was relatively easy. We had a fire alarm inspection. The only other thing that happened, and some of you may have seen pictures, is the PTO is contributing money to build a pavilion outside. Some trees were removed that were dead, and then they poured a pad for it and a sidewalk up to it as the first step. I'm not sure what the process is after this, but that was done over April break as well. At MISCO, we had an issue with the fire enunciator panel, which is right at the front door. If you sometimes have gone in MISCO and heard a high-pitched humming, that would be what's doing that door. So apparently some water got in there, damaged the panel, so we had to have the entire system replaced, which also involved replacing all of the smoke detectors in the building. All of that was done over April break, and that was an insurance claim. We didn't have to do an inspection there because everything was brand new. So when they turn it on and say, okay, you're all set, you're all set. The controls for the sewer ejections for the leach field were replaced. And that was actually done back in, I think, February or March. Just they were not pumping up. Again, I don't know if you know how the system works. The septic tank, like what you have at your house, except we have a 10,000 gallon tank, or the 250 gallon tank you have at your house. It's over by the daycare center in the parking lot. It goes to the back, and you'll see some Jersey barriers, and there's a pit there. That's where the pumps are. Then the leach field is all the way up in left field of the baseball field. So it has to pump it all the way uphill. So these are the pumps that make it all work. Those were replaced, and then we are going to put a door in from the teacher's room out into the courtyard, so that we have two means of egress, so that we can use that as an outdoor space. They were supposed to do that over April break, but again, parts are stuck somewhere not here. So that was put off until they get all the materials in. At Nipmoc, I don't know if you guys remember, about a year ago, the clock tower was damaged. We're not sure if a bird flew into it, if somebody threw something at it. We're not sure how it got damaged. That was repaired and replaced over April break. I've been told that it's new LED lighting and it's very bright. I haven't had a chance to see it at night. We're here long enough, maybe I'll see it tonight. But it's how you,
It's good, you can
It's
see
good?
it, it's, yeah.
it's not
not
like
too
a
bright.
Back to the Future type of a clock tower, but you never know where it's going. Same thing with fire alarms passed. We have a very large compressor that works with pneumatic systems. So all the HVAC units and all the classrooms run on pneumatic. It means you got little tubes with air in them that feed throughout the entire school. The compressor that runs off that failed. So we had to replace that. That was installed over April break. We're just this week getting the irrigation systems up and running. And the boiler project is ongoing. They're still doing prep work and submittals through the different architects and contractors. That work is going to start Monday after graduation. We didn't want to have all the promotion when Mike was graduating. We thought it was important to get a clean parking lot.
Thank you.
It's all about you. Right. I just want you guys to know.
Yeah.
And then as far as other projects we're doing, we're tuning up all the AC units in anticipation of the summer. I know that you remember we funded in this year's budget new lawnmowers for all of the schools. They were ordered back in October. We are still waiting for them to come in. I'm told the tractors are in, the mower decks are not. So the tractor's pretty useless without the mower deck part. I think 2 of the snow blowers are in just in time for summer. But we're still waiting for those as well. And I keep asking and I keep getting told, yes, they're coming. But unfortunately, we're in a sort of a stuck situation in that the ones we have are barely working, and I hate to put money in machines that we're getting rid of. At the same time, the grass has to get cut, so we're going to have to keep them up and running until we get the new machines. And that's about it as far as just short little stuff that we've done recently. Every day I meet with Ken, and there's something else that we learn about. So, the buildings, to your point about capital bonds coming down the road, there's a lot of things that, it's not that the buildings are in bad condition, but things are old. For example, the carpet in this room is 25 years old. It's probably seen better days. We have that situation in all 4 schools. We've got a lot of work. So we're working on developing this list. We have a list that we had from a couple of years ago. Some of the stuff's been done. We're trying to update it. We'll be bringing it to you either like in the next meeting or in the next couple of meetings. We should have that for you so you can start to review some of the things on it. That is something we're going to have to plan for. And I've been telling everybody in both towns that we're probably coming for a capital bond at some point after the debt is gone to try and address some of these issues that are going to have to get dealt with. Any questions?
No,
Okay.
thank you, Jim.
I'm all set then, thanks. I still think we should play gotcha.
There's still time.
Yes, I would be.
All right, Mrs. Mannion here?
She's behind the pole.
Behind the pole.
I can't see you behind the
Yes.
Hi, I'm here as well.
Hi, Lauren. Thanks
Hi,
for
can you
joining
guys
us.
hear me?
Yes, can you hear us?
Yes, yeah, perfect.
Excellent. So
Hi.
everyone says hi. Oh, now they can see you. I was gonna say, they say nice to see you. Thanks for being here. Lauren LaJoy is working on coordinating Nature's Classroom this year. We're super grateful. This is something she does out of the goodness of her heart because she feels this is an important opportunity for our students. It's not because she's getting compensated financially, but she just really believes in this project and wants to make sure that we go back to this tradition at this go. So we are here because we have a slight shift of venue. So I think Lauren can quickly explain why that shift is occurring and what we're hoping to get permission for.
Yeah, so we're super excited to get the ball rolling on getting the Nature's Classroom trip back for our 5th graders. And in the process, we typically go to Charlton, and due to COVID and whatnot, management of their properties has been shifted slightly so that Anderson Moore is someone who pretty much manages about 6 or 8 of the Nature's Classroom properties, and he's excellent to work with. He always responded to my emails, answered all my questions, and he gave us new properties that were potentials for us to go. And I know in the past years, all our 5th grade teachers and 5th graders, since we're bringing Mendon and Upton together, we were really hopeful for all of us to go all at one time. And there is a property in Ivoryton, Connecticut, that's under 2 hours away that would have that potential. So pretty much we're excited about it because we are going to have new staff next year. Also, it's bringing Mendon and Upton together, and the whole 5th grade is there. So we can work on community building and kicking our year off in October. We have some great dates. They offered October 17th to October 19th. So it's still 2 nights, 3 days, the same length of time that we've gone in the past. It's just a little further away, out of state. But the positive is we have October dates and we could all go together. The cost per student, as with any, did anybody have any questions at this point?
Lauren, I'm just gonna on staff, where in the past some of the locations we've relied on EMTs for medical support. So that's another draw for this location.
Yes, Anderson mentioned that there's a registered nurse at this site, which is another really good benefit because that wasn't always the case in Charlton. The per student cost, we've been struggling a little bit with getting some numbers back from either our coach bus or school buses to know exactly what the per student cost will be. I know just for staying at Nature's Classroom, it's $301. I don't think it's going to be more than $340 per student, personally. Are there any other questions? This is all new to me. I know there probably will want to be an information night for the 4th grade parents as well.
Is that a significant change in cost from previous Nature's Classroom? It's been a while since I've paid for my kids to do this.
I would say it probably is maybe between a $70 to $80 increase, but with gas prices and everything going up, food, buses is really taken a jump in the last couple of years. That I think that's the biggest hit on a lot of our trips now is the busing costs in most cases.
That makes sense.
I want to say 2 years ago when we went, I want to say it was maybe $270 to $280 around there for a 5th grader to go to Charlton.
Okay, I checked before the meeting, 4 years ago, it was about $260, so I think being further away and the cost of gas right now, that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, I'll throw it out there real quick. I was debating. I don't think there's any 5th or 6th graders watching tonight. But
It's prime time viewing.
prime time viewing, exactly. I think there's a group that has gone to the student council to ask you guys if you'd consider moving it from 5th grade to 7th grade, so that the 5th and 6th graders who missed it, everybody would then still get a chance to go. So you might want to be surprised, but I think they're actually putting together something to share with you guys in the next few days, a little proposal.
Yeah.
And
So we did try to have
benefits of
Nature's
trying to do that.
Classroom. Nature's Classroom does a site visit and utilizes the property that you have, so we tried to create that opportunity for our 6th graders for this year.
Yeah.
And I think everyone had the same idea, so despite our efforts, we couldn't get any dates. And this work, piece of that communication piece on the ground that was lacking, so we'll be talking about that, like how we direct kids to experiences.
Yeah, and it's kind of a rite of passage, right? I mean, it's, you know, like,
Absolutely.
I hate to, I went through the school system here, but everyone kind of remembers going to Nature's Classroom. So it'd still be awesome if we could figure out how to, we did move it up to 6th and doubled up 1 year, somehow just give everyone a shot to get through the program.
That's why I'm so grateful for the work Lauren's done, because she's been really tenacious in making sure that we.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I
That's
mean,
real.
we're definitely, Anderson's willing to work with any grade level, so I mean, I can easily talk to 6th or 7th. At the 5th grade level, typically the staff has been willing to go. And that's a huge cut in price too, because sometimes they do an overnight chaperone, which is an additional cost, but we've always gone as staff with our 5th graders and stayed the whole time. But you know, I agree. I wouldn't want anybody to miss this opportunity. So I'm more than willing to work with like 6th grade and 7th grade if they want to take this on as well.
Give them a project, yeah. So,
Just add to my gray hairs.
there you go. I will say real quick, not too far. My wife goes with Hopkinton every year to that location in Connecticut and they love it. So they've really been happy with that spot.
I love that song.
Yeah.
We're just looking for permission to cross the state line.
Motion to approve the request.
I move to approve the out-of-state field trip request for Nature's Classroom for Ivoryton, Connecticut for next year.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have
Appreciate
a
you
great
being here.
time. I hope you bring us pictures next year.
Oh, yeah. Be careful. You know my whole strategic plan. Thank you all.
Take care. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sam, if you could pull up my presentation, that would be great. So I'm gonna jump into the end of year cycle for the superintendent goals. Just as a reminder, it's been a little bit of a strange year, but typically, you bring goals forward probably really early on in the year, and then you would have a midpoint for a check-in around January, and then you would have that end of cycle. In the past, we did the evaluations where we talked about this last time about how it would run into the following year to do the end of year evaluation, but we decided to try to do our best to mirror the year-long evaluation process that we have for our educators, although it looks a little different this year. This year, as interim superintendent, we talked about, instead of doing the whole evaluation because of the shortened timeline, to focus just on the goals. So in subsequent years, it would be this piece around the goals, but we'd also, at the end of the year, there would be evaluations related to the 4 standards as well. So that's the point that's missing in the end of year process that you'll all participate in. So we're just focused on the goals here. So in January, I presented the draft goals, got some feedback from the subcommittee, and then have been working on the goals. And I was trying to do the math of how many months I've had to make progress, and was pleased to find that, okay, when I went through a lot of the benchmarks, okay, we hit a lot of the marks, and I was pleased with the progress that I have made. There are a couple areas where we definitely, I'll speak to them, but that we've identified. It's almost, we were in an evaluative stage in some places, in some areas, and then next year, where we've been gathering information, and that will lead into some of our strategic work for next year. So if you can go to the next slide, I'll do a quick overview. I shared this in January. One piece of the work, so when we come forward at the next meeting and talk about all of the strategic action plans, some things you're gonna think, I think I've heard this, or hopefully you've been hearing it the entire year, because we try to weave in a lot of our progress on the goals. And I'd love to hear even the example that we gave earlier, Michael, of all the students are talking about SC math. That's a pretty good outcome, considering that was one of our strategic goals this year that we were working on. So hopefully there's some overlap with that. But in here, we have a lot of alignments. You've heard presentations throughout the year on the school improvement goals. I've been working with the principals and department leaders on their goals as well. And there's alignment with ours, and then the strategic plan. You go to the next slide. So just as a reminder of a typical ed-eval schedule, at the beginning of the year, you would have, I did my own self-assessment, just as I got started, but we talked about the goals and plan development, implemented the plan, and right here, where it says here, is where we're at leading into the end of year evaluation process. And then we start again, any feedback or anything that comes out of my entry plan, which I'll share at the end of at our last meeting, some of my findings. Some of those findings will then lead into the work. Just as a little highlight, Phil, you mentioned, capital planning as one. So we'll have a list, but I would see that being one of our major goals that is going to come out of the entry plan or some long-term work that we're going to do next year. And that's one of many examples. So there were 4 goals. Goal number 1 was focused, I'm not going to read all of them to you, but was focused on my own professional practice. And so it's focused on areas that I'm trying to grow. And I was already actively involved in an AASA program and also the NISA program. And so I'm going to give you some highlights. I've shared with you the entire packet that has all the benchmarks. It has links to some evidence in there, and it has some reflections in where I think that I fall in my own self-assessment of the goals. Tonight, that's a really large document. You have all the details. I'm going to try to just give some high level and not go too in depth, but if you end up having questions or I missed something or wasn't clear, feel free to ask me a question. So if you go to the next slide, thank you. So some of the goals. On the left, I have identified the core key actions of what I was participating in this year. We had a really, it was longer than I expected. We talked, but it was a really good conversation last week with the Superintendent Evaluation Committee. But it was good because as we started to talk, I wanted to keep saying, and then I did this, and then we did this, and then I learned this, and applied it here. The new Superintendent Induction program is a very significant program. I know I've talked about it this year. I have content sessions each month. I would say probably the most meaningful work that I've had has been working with my coach. I meet with him weekly every Tuesday morning at 8:30 and virtually, or he'll come in and he'll also observe me. You've seen him at school committee, leadership team, walkthroughs, ask me questions, give me feedback, and kind of work through things that are going on. But in addition to that, in the program, I know I shared out kind of the overview of the whole program, but there's a lot of focus on content. I just shared a resource that tomorrow, when I'm in some of the programming tomorrow for this month, we're going to be focusing on the article that I shared with you. So it's really relevant and timely, and it's been really beneficial. So I just want to thank you for supporting that as well. It's been extremely helpful. I think probably my favorite, most impactful program I've participated in finished in February. I started last February, and it was the National Aspiring Superintendent Program. I spoke about how it was so applicable to my work that what I have learned in that program, I immediately have applied the entire year this year. And so from working on the entry planning, working on the opening day sessions that I did with educator evaluation and supervision, supervision of principals. So these are many of the modules that we worked on. I would also say some of the crisis communication work was extremely helpful when we had things come up this year. I had a whole module on that, and also communication planning, which has been really tied to some of the work. So thank you for support of that as well. And that has also built a national network. And I had a coach that was from Pennsylvania, superintendent from Pennsylvania, and the 2 superintendents who ran it are just excellent in AASA. I've been involved in MASS, MASC, and now recently in Mars as well for regional school districts for a number of years. And I would say what the areas that I used specific work from workshops that I've attended either virtually or at the conference was related to the budget this year. And so when we built the budget book, much of how it was presented, I got ideas from workshops that I went to at the MASC conference on how to communicate a budget. Also at the budget subcommittees when we shared, Jay and I worked on a better way to explain the grants, because we get lots of questions on grants. A lot of that information came from some of the workshops on grants that I went to at that MASC conference. In addition to that, I try to be active as much as I can in the superintendent roundtables, Worcester County and Tri-County, we're members of both. I can't always make meetings. It probably sounds like I'm always out in meetings, I'm not, but you know, some are like an hour here virtually. It's, you know, I spread it out. If I can't go, I get the resources. But when I can, or if it's a timely subject of what we're working on, particularly with a lot of the COVID response, it's been really helpful to be part of that. And then, even though it wasn't in my plan, but I've just finished out leading the Assistant Superintendent Mentor Program, where we I had started that last year, and we train mentors, assistant superintendents who are mentors to new assistant superintendents, and it's really grown this past year, so I've been proud of that work. So what are some of the outcomes? Those are a lot of the steps and action steps. I mentioned already the budget book. This image, you know, I have to give due credit. Granted, it's only an image, but we didn't really have one before. But with the budget, that came, you know, that idea came from some of the presentations on how to visually present budget information so people can understand it better. And certainly, we still have a long way to go so people can understand it, but it's been beneficial for me to participate in a lot of these workshops. The entry plan, you'll see some of the outcomes and findings at the end of this year, but that process is an outcome that you'll see. And we've also really integrated, so equity has been the main focus of my workshops in NISF this year, and a lot of, we've basically learned how to apply the lens of equity to all of our work and operations and everything that we're doing, and so we've been integrating across the board as a result of that. For goal number 2, student learning goal. So we said by the end of the year, 75% of students in grades K through 8 will meet grade level expectations in ELA and math as measured by the iReady diagnostic system. This one, and I said this in the benchmark in our meeting, is a tricky one to hit that mark right now because we haven't had the end of year yet. So we presented, I linked in some data and some reports of where we were at that midpoint of February into March related to iReady. But a piece of this goal is all of the supports that we've been putting in place to help get to that goal and beyond. And so here for key actions, you have them up there, okay. We started the year with an acceleration roadmap training that I had with the leadership team, and we've also had a focus on MTSS and culturally responsive instruction. And we've had PD that's been woven through our leadership team meetings in regard to pandemic recovery and also how to focus on acceleration and grade appropriate standards. Something you've heard a lot about this year, because it has been a focus, was related to our benchmark assessments in iReady, Lexia, Diggle, and Panorama. It's the first time Sean said, oh, I've never seen this calendar before. So make sure you check it out. I've linked in the district assessment calendar. I created it for the first time last year, but it's been really helpful for us as a district to be really consistent. And we just keep adding to it with our analysis, but definitely if you didn't notice that, check that out because it outlines when we're doing it. And we've had to make some adjustments over the course of the year, but it's becoming part of our practice. And we're in about year 2 of some of these assessments, and some are year 1. And it's really, it takes at least 3 years for it to really become part of our culture, but it is, and the teachers have been incredible. You hear about the supplemental instructional resources of SD Math. The other day I was in Marie Brigham's class. No, it was, they had a announcement about Marie Brigham's class. They had already met 100% of their grade 4 in SD Math, and they were celebrated at the school assembly last on Friday, right? So we've made such significant progress with that program, but that's supplemental. That's not our core math bridges curricular resource that we've been using in learning. We're only in year 1 of that, but we've added that layer on top of it. And so also we have added the layer of the personalized instruction in ELA and math already as well. So when you we talked about this before, but just as a reminder, everybody, when you take the diagnostics, then you get identified for the personalized path. And so teachers work with the students, but then you have that layer in there. Now, where are we at with that in the year? It's, Cheryl did a great job of showing an analysis of kind of where we are in that process. In February was when we had a personalized instruction PD. So we've had different types of PD throughout the year. So we've seen already an increase in the use of personalized instruction after that. And so we're really, in a way, only in kind of year one, even though we're in year two-ish of iReady, we're really more in year one of iReady and being deep in our analysis of the data. Last year, we learned how to use it. This year, we're learning how to analyze it more deeply and then make interventions and then now we're adding the layer of personalized instruction. So, we're making improvements, we're seeing improvements, but we're really kind of in that first year there. We did find that with our MTSS audit information that we did a self-assessment at the beginning of the year with staff and analyzed it as a leadership team and identified certain areas that our teachers were unfamiliar with terms or areas that they didn't see the connections with MTSS. And that has been part of our evaluative process this year to then identify PD for next year. And so one thing, and we'll talk about it when we get to the strategic action goals, and I'm probably repeating things maybe that we might talk about in next week too, more in depth, but we've made some great progress of understanding our needs. So we focused on really tier 1 supports this year, and we're making as many connections we can with MTSS. We'll be diving deeper into it next year. And then finally, something that I'm proud that we brought back, because last time we did it, I think as a team was about maybe 10 years ago, or it might have been the first year that Joe had started in here too, was doing learning walkthroughs with the team in the building. So they had a request last year of something they were seeking to be able to do protocols and learning walkthroughs in all the buildings. So we were able to do that. So every other leadership team meeting that I hold, one is in the afternoon, it's every other week. We'll have a meeting, the other meeting we'll have in the morning, and we'll do walkthroughs with the protocol, and we'll be looking for feedback and go through. The teachers have been great and welcoming us into the classrooms. So we've really made a lot of progress in this area in our supports for all of the action steps. So in the end, you will see and hear about our new and interactive district curriculum accommodation plan. The first year that I created the DCAP for the district was in 2014. We revised it back in about 2018, and it's been up for revision. And it should have been revised a couple of years ago with COVID. We put it on hold. And so Cheryl's led that committee, and they've had an awesome team of representatives from all schools. So at the last PD day, they started to roll up kind of how we're going to be communicating it out, and we have close to a final draft. What I really like about it is in the improvements in it, we're now more closely connected to MTSS, so we see how it fits into that. And the other piece I really like about it, they're building a database of resources. So if it says, I'll use the age-old preferential seating, or that we might have seen, like a combination in the class, it'll then have links that explain it to staff. Now we do bring it into new teacher orientation and induction. We do try to incorporate into meetings. It's definitely been used in certain areas in the district and not in other areas. It wasn't as familiar, even though we always had it. And I've always purposely had it be like, here's a book and I want to see it at the meetings and out in the classrooms. But I think what happens is everyone knows about it the first year, and then it fades away as a couple of years and new people come on board, even though we share it. And so we have a really great communication roll-up plan that I'm excited about. So that's really big. And I was in here when Allison Klisch was explaining it, and I was watching everyone in the room like, oh, okay, yeah, all the teachers were like, yeah, that's great, let's hear more about it, which is awesome. Talked about the audit analysis, and then we're coming up with implementation plan for next year, and then full implementation. I'm really proud of the academic SEL and Thrively assessment implementation and that we put forward, and the fact that I've seen it in use in all the buildings and people talk about it, and we haven't mastered it yet, right? But the fact that I'm hearing teachers saying, yeah, let me look at the Thrively, or the panorama data said this, and I'm meeting with the counselors and we're looking at Metro West data, and we're also talking about the panorama data, and then we're saying, okay, now what do we need to change with curriculum? So I'm seeing great outcomes as a result.
Can I just ask you a question?
Sure thing.
So just in terms of like the, the academic, the SEL and the Thrively assessments, and the data analysis meetings, so that's all going on in-house, but in terms of getting some of that information, I'm hearing from parents that they really want to like get feedback on these assessments, so like what's being done, just or how does that fit into the goals and what's the timeline for that?
Yeah, no, thank you for that question. I know we received specifically the iReady question. I don't know if they came up at a meeting here earlier this year, or I know a parent reached out at one point too. So because we're in that first year, we need to work with our teachers on how to explain the data, understand the data themselves, and then explain it. So my expectation specific to iReady is that beginning next year, now that we've had a full year of understanding and that analysis piece, that those parent reports or that parent data will be able to be fully provided. I know in a couple instances I've been able to provide data because I've been able to dive in and like explain it when it, because we use some of that data for the acceleration counting on summary, and I'll sit down with the parent on that. But that would be the plan in order to do that as well. I don't know if they have, I don't think they have parent reports in Panorama. I don't know, I haven't been in there in a little bit, so I can see what that is. But absolutely, it is a firm belief for me that parents are partners with us in this process, but we also don't want anything to ever come across as alarming. The way the languages, we want to be able to explain it and be able to say, this is what we're working on, or this is what that means, or it's specific, just like when we have report cards and feedback and progress reports, that we can sit down and explain it. But it is the plan to be able to communicate that out.
That makes sense. I mean, it's important for the teachers to be able to put things into context, like
Yeah.
just providing a number, like it's not.
And I think it's taken, this year to really become familiar with all of the elements, particularly to iReady, the layers of it and the interventions. And that's why we've had constant PD the whole year. So it's, how do you do this report? And then, okay, what's that analysis mean? And then here's the instructional piece, and here's personalized instruction, what you can do, and what the data means. I can't say enough, though, that the PD days, the additional days this year, have finally allowed us to have continuous PD throughout the year, which I think I've seen greater movement in the learning of our teachers as a result. For goal number 3, talks about a communication plan and our goal to improve frequency and clarity of district communications. So on the left, you see the key actions related to a review of our communication platforms, including website and social media. One thing I talked about the other day that you can click into it, we actually did, starting the leadership team meeting in the summer, we looked at it through different personas, profiles, and the scavenger hunt activity, and I asked them to go back, just recently shared that out with them again. They asked for it again to do another look at the website. What would students be looking for? What would parents, community members, because we're all looking for different things. And can you find it? And can you find it on a website? Can you find it on another website? And so that's part of the work. And so that, in addition to the feedback in short surveys or surveys that have gone out through school councils, or CPAC had a survey and gave us feedback of what they're looking for. So various different groups, they've given us feedback. Many of you have given us feedback at times. So anytime we do, we then go and make a change. And some things we've realized when we get lots of questions, people are looking for specific information, and we realize it's not really on the website. So I really want that to be, and it's not done, right? So that's always ongoing. There's a lot more we can do with the website heading into next year, and I'll target some other areas for improvement. But we have definitely, and I give lots of examples of the areas that we've improved. Student support services really stands out. I have contacts for civil rights representatives, which is required to be on our website. It hadn't been, we added that in. Also have public records requests. We've had an increase, like all school districts, for public records requests. So we have a process. Our updated bullying and prevention intervention plan is accessible up there as well, which was updated earlier this year. So we have a number, we have the COVID dashboard, And I would say probably the budget's where we have the most information for trying to increase transparency. So a lot of that has come from the surveys and our own audit, but we keep going back to it and saying, okay, what are we missing? And we need part of the overall communication plan that will end up being a strategic goal next year is to really talk about frequency. So we have some areas that we've improved in our frequency, like when you're going to get the newsletters from the schools or the principals, right? When they're coming, people say, I look forward to the Monday or whatever, and they get that. So that's been one area of improvement. Also, in using some more newsletters, it allowed us, and we have an updated Pro account that we pay for because it allows for translations. We've also added in translations through Skillshare, which we had to really do a lot of advocacy in order to get that in there, so we can send that out as well to increase access for more families. As of a week ago, I hadn't created an Instagram account, which is one of my goals, so I did complete it yesterday on Mother's Day. There are 5 posts. Please follow us on Instagram now. Check that off. I did complete it. Not by the date that I said that. We did Facebook right at the beginning of the school year. I don't use Instagram, so it was a lot easier. It really didn't take that long. So we'll start cross-posting. What's nice about Skillshare, when we send out those district messages, let's say it's a snow day, hopefully we won't be talking snow days for a long time, but I can go in and actually now hit Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and it's all connected. It wasn't at the beginning of the year, but now I could do that and have a blast that goes out, which will really save a lot of time as well. One thing I'm definitely proud about too in this goal is celebrating teaching and learning. That we've had highlights for our students at every single one of our meetings. In addition to our meetings and trying to do that is also just through social media, through the newsletter, through images, to have more insight into the world of the experience of Mendon-Upton. A lot of people talked about in the budget presentation, talk about numbers. Numbers are important, and that's part of our job as well. But the fact is, numbers don't always match, our experience that our students are having and what they remember too. So I'm really trying to highlight so people who maybe aren't in the classroom and are in schools can get a sense of all the schools and what's happening. We added the MURC Inspires nominations this year, which has been really nice to celebrate our teachers and staff members as part of that as well. Did I miss anything in here? I don't think so. So we can go to the next slide. So some of the actual outcomes that you see are the newsletter, the presentations, a lot of specific outcomes, Facebook, Instagram, what's on the website, and the translations. And I put for a future date, we had in there that we would do an end of year survey. I'm opting not to do that end of year communication survey, instead do it at the beginning of next year to set us up of what people are looking for. And the reason why is I found out that all of our buildings are doing communication surveys. So I didn't know that they were going to do that when I made this goal. I don't want to over survey all of our parents. So like when I was talking to Mrs. Mannion last week, she said, oh, I have some questions related to communications that are there. So what I'd rather do is in designing the communication plan and as outcomes from the entry plan to figure out what targeted information are we looking for related to communications as opposed to just general communication questions once I go through. So I put that for a future date at the end along with that creation of the plan and steps for next year. Finally, SEL end of year system will be put in place to help teachers to reconnect with our students through established SEL curriculum modules, PD and culturally responsive practices, and student SEL data. The next one. So you have heard a fair amount of this over the course of the year. One piece that we've had that's been ongoing is providing PD to staff and administrators on culturally responsive teaching practices. And what our focus has been around the district book of culturally responsive teaching in the brain. I think probably if you're not familiar with that book, one thing you may want to click in, there's one link in there. It's from an activity that we did at a leadership team. So we did it just a couple chapters each meeting. And in it, you can see some of the culturally responsive teaching practices that are pulled from the book, and we try to categorize them. And then just know that some of those are in the DCAP. And so just like when we revised the DCAP last time to bring in more supports for behavioral supports that weren't accommodations that were in our DCAP, we're also looking at culturally responsive teaching practices related to that book as well. So that's been one thing. We already talked about communicating expectations. I did that in a memo and a few times to staff around common language around one community and eliminating labels. I provided PD for administrators as well as teachers. And I think there's a lot of details in there about all of the PD we provided throughout the whole year related to culturally responsive instructional practices. So again, specifically implicit bias. It's very well received by our teachers this past year. We also have been incorporating a district analysis of student social emotional learning data. That's been more at a more district or school-based level related to the competencies to identify then, they're using that to identify lessons that they're bringing out and piloting through Thrively. And so this year, Dave Quinn spearheaded working with the schools and different groups. So recently I looked at an outline by advisory at the high school, and you have different Thrively lessons that are scheduled throughout advisory throughout the year on different topics. So I think I might have incorporated it in there as like a sample of what they worked on. And then at elementary, a little different. They piloted some of these lessons from Thrively with students throughout half of the year. They haven't done the whole year. So now that we've tried it out, what we want to do moving forward, which would be a future action step, is related to a vertical alignment and building that out across the whole district. In addition, in use of the Thrively system, we've also used it for strengths assessment. Our students have taken a strengths assessment, and also we have embedded the portrait of a learner in there, and some of our district action steps relate to portrait of a learner and piloting, and how do we do a reflection, how do we upload portfolio information, and we can house that kind of information for a portfolio related to portrait of a learner someday in the future. We're not there yet, so we're just trying out the system for what it can offer. So this year, related back to the goal, our students have experienced lessons all across the district in Thrively. We've started to have clear connections with their portrait of a learner and their learning experiences. And staff administrators have been provided specific tools to improve culturally responsive instruction in the classroom. And I've talked a lot about the systems created for the comprehensive, the whole child kind of assessment profile, so we can get to know our students better. A big piece of our work you've heard all this year is understand our students better, to support them, and then to engage them. A lot of our work now, you'll hear when we talk about action goals later on, is related to authentic learning and the engagement piece. A lot of the work that I've talked about here so far is around the understanding and supporting. So then the last slide just reminds you of how what I tried to do is just link the goals to where if you were evaluating me related to the standards, this would help to show you in the standards that alignment with what standards and what to follow as well. The last slide. Two pictures from this past month, but I just want to, thank you. Thank you for listening, and you have lots of information to go through. So what will happen, the next step will be you'll be given access to TeachPoint in order to #23rd meeting, and that's when the evaluation will be. I just talked a lot.
A lot of good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can get going sometimes. So. But if you have any questions now, I'm happy to answer them. But at any point, if you have specific questions, once you're able to really dive into it, I'm more than happy to, just say, hey, what's this, or ask a question. And if you want to.
When would you go send the next year?
We'll do that at the beginning of next year. Probably August. I'd want to do them after we have our strategic goals, because we kind of begin with strategic goals, and also I do my self-assessment, and we kind of see what are the areas, and then we set the goals at the beginning of the year. In the past, if I remember the timeline, we would present those goals usually by October. Usually. I think that's about when the teachers, yeah. And then usually the mid-cycle is end of January, beginning of February timeline.
Great.
Right. Thank you. And so, I want to recognize we have a member who is going to be leaving us, and so this marks, and I went through all the years, so tell me if I got it wrong, but after 7 years of dedicated service. That's wild. 7 years to the district. If you could please join me in congratulating her and her hard work, commitment, dedication. I know you're not feeling well tonight, and I'm happy to see you. Don't feel bad, but this is your last meeting. One thing I can say that I always appreciate about you. So, Dorothy, you don't always say a lot, but the mind is always going, and when you do, you're so on point, and you offer so much background and experience and knowledge to the conversation, and I really appreciate it. I know it's only been a short term in this role, but in working on subcommittees or things, policy things that come up, you get in there, you dive in and go, this is what I think, and I've always really appreciated that. And as a former school committee member myself, there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes that people don't see. It's not just these meetings, it is like a full-time other job that's a volunteer position. And so anyone who steps up for that, particularly for that long, 7 years is a long time, and that's a huge true commitment of time and energy, and for our students, and just want to thank you for that. So I have a little card here, and we have an amazing present that isn't here tonight. The supply chain abyss. However, we got a notification that it should be coming soon, so we'll track it down after. I'll hand this over to you.
I'd just like to say thanks to all my committee members that I've worked with that are here this evening, and prior committee members, and it's been a great experience working with everybody. And I'd like to thank, the community at large, and the superintendent, the teachers, the students and staff, and everybody for offering the opportunity for me to give back to my community. And so it's been a great experience, and I wish the best of luck to the 1 or 2 new people coming in, and I'm sure that they'll have a wonderful time serving the community as well. And I'll be back every now and then to sit in and enjoy the conversation.
There's lots of seats.
But I'm looking forward to more of my evenings off. It's gonna be nice. So.
Thank you.
Thank you much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dorothy, for your service. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, shifting to school committee subcommittee updates. Policy subcommittee. Our last meeting we had first reading of several policies. And I believe there were some adjustments to language.
Yes, so in your background notes, you can see the changes that we made, the original policy, and changes are in red. In some cases, just a small portion removed, and some rewording to bring it in line with the current MASC recommended policies. So that was EA, school committee power duty, BBAA, school committee member authority, and JED entrance to school. So all of those we'll be looking to. I would move to approve all three as amended in the notes.
Can we hold on BBA? Just from the standpoint of checking with Mike Long on the section on personnel matters, make sure it reads in accordance with the law. What's there? They thought there was some components that kind of confusing when you're banging up against the law and the piece there. Example, I'm the school business administrator or manager. I don't know if that's supposed to be disabled or not. What's there in the language that's there. I just want to give it 2 weeks until our next meeting to check it out with Mike Long. Just make sure that it's worded in the right way.
So I will rescind my motion. But yeah, we can look into that. So again, we were following what was recommended by MASC, but yeah, we can certainly look into it. We can hold off on that one and check on that. And
yeah, I've gone back and I've looked. I've seen some communities have adopted all the wording, and other communities have only adopted the top portion of the wording about the personnel.
Yeah, which is what our existing policy is. So I think the ones that have the full wording probably have updated it more recently, but I don't have any issue with just double checking to make sure that.
I think the personnel matter. I mean, superintendent, specifically the roles and pieces there are all governed by law anyways. And the other piece about who reports and kind of appointment in the process there is governed by law as well. We just want to make sure that it's aligned. My view is not to make things more wordy, but actually do this work. That just makes our life sometimes more difficult. But people read this and they're like, what does that mean? And how does it work? And then just generates. What questions?
So we will hold off on EA.
Okay, so the new motion would be.
So I will move to approve policy BBAA, school committee member authority, and policy JED entrance to school.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. The second and third policies have been approved. We will hold them first. Okay, next subcommittee is the Golden Apple Award timeline review. Deadline for the submissions for the Golden Apple Award nominations is May 19th. So far we've received 35 nominations, and the award will be presented at our June meeting.
Are we gonna send out a second reminder on that, just if people wanna do it, or?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay. Feels like last year we got, maybe people just put it on, we had a flood right at the end, didn't we?
Yes, we did. Yeah. I think that was followed by a reminder.
Yeah, it was,
You're creating more work.
I was just gonna, you beat me to it, but yeah, read more. All right.
All right, moving on.
I'll follow Phil's.
All right, moving on to new business. We have a vote on school choice. You have in your background notes the policy and the law, but it is the policy and the law by June 1st. Each year, the school committee has to determine their status as a school choice district. believe we have received a recommendation that we continue as a school choice district again for this next year. So we would need a motion and a vote to reaffirm us as a school choice district.
Can I ask two quick questions, because I know you took the policy, sorry, I'm confused, but, so in the school choice openings, we identified that we have 34 open roles spread across various different grade levels. Currently, how many school choice students do we have?
125. Okay. Kevin opens us looking at it.
Do we know out of those 125, how many are seniors?
What did I say?
Can I just say, I'm trying to anticipate the question.
There you go, that's the question. That's the question.
13.
Nice, that's on.
Yes.
So with what's there in school choice openings next year, we would end up with, minus 13, plus 34. I know.
There may be 146, yeah.
There we go. Fantastic. All right.
Yeah, but I guess, but at the end of the day, this is my first time looking at this, but I get the K openings are gonna probably be advantageous. And maybe the 9th grade, but given the fact that we've got no 5th grade openings, I mean, that 6th, 7th, and 8th, I can't believe.
There's a reason why we can't do 5th.
Yeah.
So, it's because that's that one class, that is that large class up there, and the class sizes are too high.
Yeah.
So what I have everybody do, one piece is transitions make sense, right? You know, people are going to a new school, although most aren't transitioning in other districts at 5th, so they might be transitioning in 6th, 7th, or 8th, depending on their year. But we had a little bit more space, so that's a piece of having a little bit larger in those classes because we have more room there.
Right.
Which is why we did that.
So with the 9th graders, we have 5 openings. We don't really know how many kids we're losing between 8th and 9th, right? Between private school, we can go back and forth with our the other technical schools.
CVT?
No, Tri-County or the Norfolk Aggie, that's the one I was trying to roll on. But if we did see 11 kids go to Norfolk Aggie versus 3 or something like that, would we open up 8 more spots in the high school?
They've been trying to maintain the same level of numbers every year for consistency.
Right.
And typically, we don't usually open up too many at the high school. I think the most when I looked at historical was like 9 or 8 in some years in the freshman year, but we haven't gone much more at the high school level. And some of it is still in flux right now. Something looked at too is how much interest there is too. So I feel like they have a lot who are interested right now.
Okay.
And so then it was the openings that they have at the 5. We have a second time that we do the school choice numbers. So it's like a 2-pronged process. First, we reaffirm that we still want to continue to do school choice. And then second, we have to say, and that's the next point, we'll have to read off where those openings are as of right now at the end of this year. And then we have to do the lottery if we have more than the number of seats, openings rather. And then we do that, and then we come back right before the start of next year for that second round as well. So it's something we can reassess. But in the summer is when we get the most increased enrollment in certain grade levels as well. Not typically at the high school, although there might be some.
Yeah.
We do have about the same amount of EBT students probably going out, and we'll report on that later once we have the final numbers. They just did the second round as an example. So it's a significant 40. Usually they take, I'm finding historically, they said they usually take 20 to 25 from Mendon, 20 to 25 from Upton. It hasn't been exact, but that's what they reported to us. So it's been 40 to 50-ish. Well, we tend to see that drop, EBT wise, depending on how many people are in. But yeah, it's,
It just seems like the ninth grade one would be one that we might want to throttle one way or the other, based on what does happen with Norfolk Aggie, and then just general private school. That's fine.
and the other thing that we had conversations with all the principals, the other thing that's coming up, so in some of the freshman classes, particularly, remember from the budget presentations around social studies, we did reduce the social studies position this year. And with that, some of our class sizes are much higher in social studies. If we go too high, where we have mandated core classes, then that's where we have to be careful too. Other subjects might not be as impacted, so it's trickier to, it's not like simple math across like we have at elementary or senior and middle school teams. But in some of our content areas, it's a little bit high too. Now it's a concern to go too high, and then we're looking at too significant increase.
I could just throw it out there, right, but then if you went from 5 to 11, you could pay for that social studies teacher.
I think it's also about having the right, about the balance of what you can fit into the certain fixed operational structure and costs that are there today.
Right.
So I think partially you look at it in that regard, and I think they try to target it in a way so that when they come back, and because kids come back.
Yeah.
You know, more kids flow back than actually leave between freshman and sophomore year. We want to make sure they've got.
Got it. So the number actually bubbles back up a little bit.
Keep in mind too,
Okay.
But one thing that, I mean, so this, even though I've been involved with it before, it's probably the first time that I'm really diving into the data related to it. And so what I'd like to do, and I talked to the principals about, was, you know, that tracking too, kind of to your point. And I'd like to, it's always, superintendents always talk about it, it's like that sweet spot of school choice where you can offer enough openings, but not have it be impacting you negatively. And it's, we want to make sure we fall within that range. So this second part, Carrie, is we just need to announce the grade levels that have the numbers for those openings.
Do we want to take the vote?
Oh, sorry, thank you. I forgot that.
Usually we try to remain quiet, but we.
No, thank you. Nope, that was a long conversation.
Okay, so we need a motion to reaffirm MURSD as a school choice district.
So moved. Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion is passed, and we are reaffirmed as a school choice district. And now we need openings.
Would you like to read them?
Love that, thank you.
Sure. So for openings for kindergarten at Clough, we have 6 openings. At Misco, in 6th grade, we have 7 openings. In 7th grade, we have 8 openings. In 8th grade, we have 8 openings. And at Nipmoc, in 9th grade, we have 5 openings. Thank you.
Okay. So next up in new business is a discussion about the Fair Share Amendment. MRTA has had brought to us a request that we pass a resolution that was drafted by the MTA in support of the Fair Share Amendment, and it will be on the ballot in November of this year. I've shared a copy of the resolution with all of you, as well as the frequently asked questions document that was published by MTA. Since receiving that, and in order to address some questions from committee members, I did reach out to MASC, and the person I spoke to there indicated that the MASC Delegate Assembly has supported the Fair Share Amendment for the past 2 years. And in their opinion, it was a resolution that we could really vote upon, and we were cautioned to not devote any district resources towards promoting a particular outcome of the legislation. Additionally, I think this is a pretty new email that I sent to you all where I reached out to Mike Long to get his opinion, and that was shared. He gave us some guidance from the Massachusetts Office of Campaign and Political Finance, which again indicated that we could take a position on the question, and again cautioned about the limitations of expenditure of public funds in support of ballot questions. So it's on the agenda tonight for us to have a discussion as to what direction we might want to go with this resolution. So I would open it up to committee members for questions, concerns, discussion about the proposed resolution.
Dorothy? No, I'm just kidding. I just didn't want to be the first person to speak again. Maybe because I've been on the committee for a little while, I've seen many of these initiatives come and go. I guess I asked a question about how it's going to be beneficial to our district, specifically when we can't even get our regional transportation budget funded in full. How does that sound? And I don't think it's going to help us, because when I look at it, it's geared towards specifically. I mean, I agree with the concept. I do agree with the concept, but the devil's always in the details. And when you look at it, it's about maintenance of roads and bridges, improvements in public transportation, and funding of education. They have huge budget surpluses this year. There is more funding, my understanding, going into education. We're receiving literally nothing of that. I mean, for the length of time I've been on the committee, I think we have essentially averaged $20 to $30 a student as our average increase. And we've never been funded fully for our regional transportation. So why would we support this? Unless, of course, there was some commitment that they would actually support unfunded mandates for at least the regional school systems. Because the way I read this, it's going to go to many of the larger cities and municipalities and groups that are out there. Conceptually, once again, I agree with the premise, but I don't understand how it's really fitting out. There. I'll stop with that. How does that sound?
I'll throw out my 2 cents real quick, and I said a little bit to Carrie, but I've personally never been a fan of targeted taxes. And not to go back into the town of Mendon, but the town of Mendon a couple of years ago decided to put a tax on all restaurants, but not the rest of the businesses in town. And targeted taxes are always really cool until they impact you. And, we tend to see more and more of these. I get it, why we're trying to do it. I want to support the education budget and funding and that kind of thing. But I also, the more and more I read about the bill and look at it, is, we live in a post-COVID world, and that's the reality. And there's no more, you work where you live where you want to live, and you work where you want to work kind of thing. We're a state that borders 6 other states. We would have the highest, state income tax of those states. This is an area where, you think about people that, listen, we'd all love to be in that bracket for sure, but the people that are in there, it's an 80% effective tax increase. We all read it, it says it's 4 points. If you're going from a 50% to a 5% to a 9%, it's an 80% incremental taxes. People that have big opportunities, they're just going to leave the state. I think there's more risk that this will defund the budget than fund the budget. If you happen to be a person that built a company and whatever, you're on Shark Tank selling it for $100 million, your taxes just went from $5 million to $9 million until you moved to New Hampshire, and then it goes to zero.
So you're going to make your second home for your primary residence and switch it around.
Absolutely. And there's a couple states recently that have now said you do not have to, you can declare it as your primary residency without living there 51% of the time. And those states, look at what's going on right now. That's why Tesla moved, Oracle moved, HP moved, Boeing's moving. They're all moving to the same ability to get tax benefits. And this brings us as a state in the opposite direction. So anyways, I don't want to come off that I don't support funding the education as much as we possibly can, because I do. But I don't know if this bill would help, and I think in many ways it could actually hurt this thing.
I just want a regional transportation budget.
That would be nice.
You know, and I'll go back to it because I don't see, at least for the next couple of years, I honestly don't see us getting more than $30 a student. And I think we're gonna continue to deal with challenge, even with a bill like this passed. I don't think we're gonna see anything. I'd like to, I think the state has funding, the state has an opportunity to distribute in other ways. And let's see some goodwill in that direction that will allow us, before I would jump onto something like this. And I think as a committee, I think people can vote the way they want to vote. I totally get that, and they think it's the right thing to do. But I think as a committee, I honestly don't see how this benefits, and I'm open to discussion about it if somebody can share with me how it benefits us as a regional school system.
Do we have estimates for what it would look like in terms of a breakdown? Like we did with the Student Opportunity Act, where it was clear that we weren't really going to see a lot of that money.
I think from what I've read, right, it looks like it's about 4% increase to the state budget. But I think as Phil's going through, make a small list, it's going to fund daycare, all the road repairs we need, bridge repairs, school, and prevent college students from having student debt, or reduce student debt. Well,
it is an interesting piece, because then I'll go back to what you said. If it's really going to promote road and infrastructure development from a state level, and that's going to reduce the impact, it's kind of like Chapter 90 does today, on those costs to a town, will that then in turn enable our town to continue to fund to the right level education? So is it more of a trickle down effect? But I don't understand that, and I think in the current laws there's too many vagaries.
Don't make sense, but I like it.
There's too many items in that regard that exist. But I'm open to have my mind changed. Well, I understand how it's going to benefit districts like Boston, Worcester, Springfield, larger municipal districts. I totally get it. I just don't understand how it's going to trickle down to the fact that it can benefit us. Unless there's more specific language about, how they're going to prioritize, making sure that they fund regional transportation. Maybe they kick it from $30 to $40 in each student. I don't know how they're going to float all boats higher. So
yeah,
that could benefit us. Another day, Dorothy will come back and join us. She'll engage in a spirited debate.
Yeah.
But we don't have to take a vote on it tonight.
No.
We're having a discussion.
No, and that's, I think especially since some of the guidance from Mike Long came in last minute, there were some folks who wanted to have a little bit of time to think about it and do a little bit of that research. I think I hear legislation that's going to support, provide additional funding in support of schools, and I want to like it and I want to vote for it, but I haven't done the depth of digging, it sounds like you have, Phil, and I would like to better understand how it would directly impact and improve in some of the smaller communities versus some of the larger.
Exactly.
It seems to me that we get the smallest piece of the pie. And if we're going to ask our committee to put forth what essentially amounts to a political position, it sounds like I want us to all fully understand what we're voting in support of.
Yeah, and the way the law reads, it looks like it's just about the tax and creating a pool of revenue that will then be distributed, but based on the whim of the state government and the governor's budget, the House, in the way they wish. There doesn't seem to be any like, well, a third of it will go to education and a third of it will have to go to roads and a third of it will have to go here. I mean, I got to look a little bit more into it. Maybe it comes back to the past. It's been on the committee for a while. I've seen some of these other pieces. And I just have never seen us, reap the benefits, so to speak. I don't know what, are the selectmen, I'll use Upton, I don't know if we know Mendon, but are they looking at this initiative as something that's going to provide true benefit to their Chapter 90 funds?
As far as I know, it's never been even brought up to them.
Okay.
So it's never been discussed.
That's what I would figure with the vehicle that this funding would come through. Then do they take Chapter 90 funds, and they take it away from funding in another area, and they bump up funding? I have no idea. That's why I said it just creates the revenue, doesn't necessarily guide the spend. Said it would fund regional transportation 100%. Might lean more towards supporting it. How about that?
Okay, so I think we're going to move on from this, and we can each do a little bit of further research, think into the bill and talk about it again at another meeting. So we'll move on to superintendent contracts.
Everybody has a contract.
Yes.
Everybody had a chance to review the contract. Thank you, Maureen, for being able to work, clarify it, and bring it to it. I would just make, I guess, for clarification for the public to understand, it is essentially the same contract we gave to Joe with a salary of $180,000, which is actually representative, essentially the midpoint in Valley in the area where it's competitive and it's there. I think it's a place that we can all grow from. We can go from there. People have specific questions, I'm happy to answer, or everyone's happy to answer.
I know she is.
All right.
All right, so we need a motion.
A motion to approve the superintendent contract.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Oh,
Contract has been approved. Okay,
Congratulations.
and congratulations, Maureen. Okay, other matters not anticipated by the committee within 48 hours of the posted meeting. Having none, move on to correspondence. Having none, we will move on to future agenda items, which is the district action plan update happening at the May 23rd meeting and the Golden Apple Awards happening in June. And I will take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned at 9:00.